where he taught in the areas of heat transfer, thermodynamics, and fluid mechanics, and conducted research in heat transfer and engineering applications of laser optics and holography. He and his graduate students developed techniques for making quantitative measures of various properties and motions from holographic interferograms, especially the measurement of three-dimensional temperature and density fields using computer tomography. He became an associate professor in '72 and a full professor in '77. At the University of Michigan, he was associate dean of engineering, then dean of engineering from 1986 to 1989. And he also became provost and vice president for academic affairs. He became president of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and served that position until December 2004, and then became MIT professor and president emeritus. As president of MIT, he was active in science, technology, and innovation policy, building partnerships among academia, government, and industry, and championing the importance of open global scientific communication, travel, and sharing intellectual resources. During his tenure, he led the launch of MIT's Open Courseware, OCW initiative. He founded the Alliance for Global Sustainability. He enhanced the racial, gender, and cultural diversity of the students and faculty, established major new institutes like in neuroscience and genomic medicine, and redeveloped much of the campus. He was a director of DuPont for 14 years and IBM for 13 years, and vice chair of the U.S. Council on Competitiveness for 8 years. He served on various federal committees and commissions, including the President's Committee of Advisors on Science and Technology. And he worked for both Clinton and Bush administrations because neither one could get along without him. He worked on the Commission on Intelligence Capabilities of the United States regarding weapons of mass destruction, the Secretary of Education's Commission on the Future of Higher Education, the Secretary of State's Committee on Transformational Diplomacy, and the Rice Chertoff Secure Borders and Open Doors Advisory Group. He serves on the boards of several nonprofit organizations and foundations devoted to education, science, and technology, and is a life member of the MIT Board of Trustees. In July 2007, he was elected to serve as president of the United States National Academy of Engineering for 6 years. He's authored a book on holographic interferometry and 2 books on higher education. He's received honorary doctoral degrees from 17 universities. I hope that's current count, could be 20. He was awarded the 2006 National Medal of Technology by President Bush and just received the Vannevar Bush Award from the National Science Foundation. I'm going to read to you the plaque. It says, the Council of Scientific Society Presidents presents the 2012 Award for Leadership to Charles Vest, President of the National Academy of Engineering, past chair of the American Association of Universities, winner of the Vannevar Bush Award and the National Medal of Technology, for his world-class leadership and excellent and superior vision guiding the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, the National Academy of Engineering, the Association of American Universities, into innovative frontiers and new directions, open global scientific communication, sharing of intellectual resources, open courseware, and global sustainability, emerging areas of science, transformational diplomacy, and 21st century grand challenges of engineering. For all these, he has earned our esteem, given December 9, 2012 in Washington, D.C. Chuck.
Well, I want to thank you, Marty, and thank all of you for this truly meaningful award. I say truly meaningful because this comes from a group of people who, mostly as volunteers, really do the Lord's work on behalf of our scientific technology communities. I'm very, very grateful for all that you and your societies do, and hope that we can continue to work together in many ways going into the future. I want to try to pose a few questions today and give some thoughts, at least, to answers. And the first question is, what are we waiting for? The embarrassing silliness of this political system this year has reinforced something that's bothered me for some time. For many years now, as a nation and a body politic, we've been waiting when we should have been acting and leading. And frankly, I don't get it. I don't understand what we are waiting for. In fact, if I hear one more person say that our educational, scientific, and technological enterprises are waiting for another Sputnik moment, I fear that I will react in some bizarre manner. But there are some things that I am waiting for, and that I suspect you are waiting for them in good, that I am waiting for them in good company of all or most of you. I'm waiting for our political and corporate leaders to honestly explain today's world, clearly and continually in their public dialogue, as well as through their strategies and actions. I also think that far too much of our nation is waiting for new ways of working to arrive. We hear lots of rhetoric about the nature of work and how it's going to change, as if it relates to some unknown distant future. The fact is, it's happening now. We need a broader recognition of this fact in policies, and especially education, that reflect it. Finally, I'm waiting for national strategies around the fundamental issues of our time. By national strategy, I generally mean what I call rules of the road. One of the great lessons of the second half of the 20th century is that central planning doesn't work. The private sector, and especially the entrepreneurial communities, will beat central government planning every time. But, having said that, in my view, many of the great national and global challenges we face today require the government and society to establish and sustain goals, directions, and policies that describe the rules of the road within which the private sector can find optimum solutions. Now, it is true that when I was a high school student, America woke up one day and learned that the Soviet Union had placed a satellite called Sputnik into orbit about the Earth. This injured our national pride, raised national security and geopolitical concerns, and led fairly quickly to a focus on the importance and quality of our science and mathematics education. It did indeed inspire many young people, including me, and in due course provided us with better teaching materials and with major increases in financial aid provided by both corporations and government for advanced studies in engineering and science and new career opportunities. Like Pearl Harbor, it was a single crystallizing moment of the kind to which our nation is very good at responding. Be that as it may, waiting for a Sputnik moment in 2012, I think, is folly. This generation already has its challenges, and they are far more fundamental and far more important than was a Soviet satellite. And most, perhaps all, of this generation's challenges are global. They are global because our world is straining to support 7 billion people who share a single environment, share finite natural resources, share knowledge, share economy and commerce, and above all, share a common humanity. As you may know, the National Academy of Engineering commissioned a committee of 18 superbly creative and innovative men and women to establish a set of engineering grand challenges that, if met, would improve life on Earth, and that the committee believed could be accomplished if we set our minds and resources to them. These grand challenges, I'm not going to enumerate all 14, but they fall into 4 large buckets: sustainability, security, health, and joy of living. Mostly through the voluntary effort of many leaders of higher education, these NAE Grand Challenges have led to numerous education and outreach programs and have entered the national dialogue among business, government, and academia. And next spring, by the way, I'm pleased to note that we're going to go global by co-hosting a Global Grand Challenges Summit together with the Chinese Academy of Engineering and the Royal Academy of Engineering that will be held in London. What I've observed through our Grand Challenges work and through many other campus visits and gatherings of entrepreneurs is that this generation of young people is eager to engage. They aren't waiting for Sputnik. So let's all work together to provide them with the opportunities and the resources to start meeting such grand challenges. Let's stop dampening their well-informed enthusiasm and efforts by choking back on funding higher education, stalling research support, blocking immigration, and glorifying and rewarding careers that add no value to our society. Virtually everyone in this room is engaged in industry and commerce, in higher education, research and development, and national security. Each of us lives, works, and learns in a highly integrated, networked world. Do you recognize that world in our political rhetoric? Do you hear our corporate leaders working explicitly in a sustained manner to help our people understand it? Maybe you do, but I don't. The world has changed and we need to get on with it. R&D investments by both private and public sectors are increasingly spread uniformly around the globe. Currently, it's about a third in North America, about a third in Europe, and about a third in Asia. Very different than it would have been 20 or 25 years ago. And the level of education is rising all around the world, especially in STEM disciplines. These new global distributions are good things, but we can't sit on our thumbs and watch much of the rest of the world approach and then surpass us in these important investments. In my view, our most important national comparative advantages are democracy, free enterprise, diversity, and excellence and inventiveness in higher education and research. So I think our leaders owe us more straight talk about the nature of today's world. In particular, we must all understand that now and in the future, we must both compete and cooperate with others all around the world. Other countries, other companies, other universities, other colleagues. Competition and cooperation are the yin and yang of the modern world. And sharing is the enabling mechanism. Sharing of knowledge, sharing of talents, sharing of education. This is the new world of open innovation and new ways of working. A case in point. The well-known roboticist Rod Brooks about a year ago suggested that we concentrate too much on the most sophisticated technologies and environments. Brooks suggested that instead, we should focus on things like small, easily programmable robots to help humans perform fundamental manufacturing operations. Such devices, to use his word, could democratize low-end manufacturing. Indeed, he's acted on this. Note the words in Tom Friedman's New York Times column describing Rod's newest venture, a company called Rethink Robotics. The Rethink design team includes Bruce Blumberg, the product manager of the Apple Laser Writer, as well as 75 other experts from Russia, Georgia, Venezuela, Egypt, Australia, India, Israel, Portugal, Sri Lanka, the United States, and China. It's all made in America, says Brooks, but by the best talent gathered from all around the world. So here in one package is competition, cooperation, and new ways of working. Yet I keep reading about new ways of working that are going to happen in some distant future. The fact is they're happening now. And we must be preparing more people to participate in them. A few years ago, we talked about brain drain. Brain drain generally refers to the movement of highly talented young people, especially scientists and engineers, to the U.S. to study and subsequently to contribute richly to our nation as faculty members, entrepreneurs, or business leaders. But drain, of course, has a negative connotation because to some extent America's gain was a loss to these individuals' home countries. But today, especially for young people, I think we're more in an age of brain circulation, with students, entrepreneurs, and corporate personnel living and working in multiple countries during their careers. Furthermore, I believe we're rapidly entering something I like to call the age of brain integration. By brain integration, I mean integrating people's minds with each other's and with computers. Here's a simple example of what I mean. Think about the game of chess. A well-programmed computer can consistently defeat a human chess opponent. This was most famously demonstrated several years ago when IBM's Deep Blue defeated Garry Kasparov. But it turns out that a team of humans plus a computer can be expected to beat any other human or any other computer. One of the most exciting examples of brain integration is the website Foldit. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. Foldit is basically a computer game developed by faculty at the University of Washington and elsewhere. It not only chains together many personal computers around the world, it also chains together many minds, because the thousands of people playing the game Foldit are in fact cooperating to solve a complex protein folding problem. Although to the individual players, this is a new way of playing, it's in fact a new cooperative way of working. Douglas Thomas and John Seeley Brown explore the same concept of harnessing massively multiplayer online games for purposes of learning in their interesting recent book called A New Culture of Learning. But in this case, my use of the word harnessing shortchanges the concept of brain integration because the players and communities themselves develop the culture of learning. It's not a new way of doing traditional teaching or learning. Finally, I should note that developing such new ways of working and problem solving is the object of intense research at several places, such as the MIT Center for Collective Intelligence, which is devoted to answering the following core research question. How can people and computers be connected so that collectively they act more intelligently than any person, group, or computer has ever done before? Let me turn now briefly to the manufacturing sector. Our nation is perplexed about the future of manufacturing here in the U.S. and about what manufacturing jobs have changed or will change. Too frequently, discussions about manufacturing revolve around a nostalgic view that the old jobs may return. In fact, we need to understand what the new jobs will be and how to prepare our young people for them. During the last several months, National Academy of Engineering, with the guidance of an informal advisory committee headed by the visionary former General Motors executive Larry Burns, have helped us begin to develop a new framework for thinking about the nexus of manufacturing, design, and innovation. We've held one major workshop of leaders from business, academia, and government, and are developing a fast-track set of research and analysis projects that we hope will be useful to the nation. There's an exciting world out there involving things like additive manufacturing, biologically based manufacturing, designed for sustainability, and advanced robotics. There's plenty of great and important R&D to be done in these fields, but the overall picture, especially the issue of jobs, is much broader than just advances in these individual technologies. Things are stirring. Our advisory committee observed that, quote, while overall U.S. manufacturing employment has decreased by 5 million jobs since 1980, manufacturing employment requiring at least a college degree has increased by approximately 1 million jobs. That should make us sit up and pay attention. The framework we're working toward is centered on what the committee called making value. By this, we imply that it is not just about making things, nor is it just about creating services. It certainly is not just about making money in ways that add little value to customers and society, and it is not just about making things confined solely to U.S. geographic boundaries. In our developing framework, making value requires an integrated system of activities, including understanding customers, research, development, design, manufacturing, and services necessary to deliver value to customers. Making value requires a holistic system of these activities that must be developed and optimized in our national interest. Now, if all of this sounds suspiciously like gobbledygook, just stop and think for a moment about what the iPhone and its progeny have done. For sure, they integrated innovation, design, and manufacturing. But they also created an entire new industrial ecosystem, especially the app industry. For sure, they made money, but also created opportunity for basement software developers, provided new platforms for businesses and for education, and either harnessed or unleashed creativity and innovation all over the world. They created and enabled a new ecosystem of people and activities. We believe this general framework of making value will extend far beyond just the IT device industry. In coming months, we hope to meet 3 basic objectives. First, to analyze existing best practices in holistic enterprises that make value for customers and society. Second, to learn all that we can about the likely ecosystems that will support future work, including the skills, education, infrastructure, and government policies to enable and support new work. And third, to determine the necessary and sufficient conditions to make the U.S. the ideal place to make value. And finally, waiting for a national strategy. I worry a lot about the seeming inability of our nation to set strategy in the broad sense of establishing and sustaining rules of the road. In fact, in the dark recesses of the night, I sometimes become afraid that this could be the Achilles heel of democracy itself. I know this is overly pessimistic, but let me give you an example of why I worry. A few years ago, I visited a sprawling facility of one of our nation's largest companies. They had invested huge amounts of money and engineering in several forms of alternate or renewable energy production: wind, solar, biomass, and so forth. These had been carried to the stage of large-scale demonstration, but the machines were just sitting there. When I asked their executives what their plans were for bringing these huge devices to market, the answer was very clear. We have no plans for commercialization. Our investment is ending because the government has set no energy policy and has set no carbon policy. Until that happens, we will have no idea of what the markets will be. Government is not going to do the things that are required for us to have a vibrant economy, health, security, and quality of life. Business is not going to address the things that are required for us to have a vibrant economy, health, security, and quality of life. Academia and nonprofits are not going to address the things that are required for us to have a vibrant economy, health, security, and quality of life. The fact is, we have to have all hands on deck. Each of these sectors must play its own proper role and forge an alliance to meet today's challenges. What we are missing, I'm afraid, is bold leadership and vision. Well, you might ask, Don't you know that we have a big financial problem? Don't you know that we're fighting 2 wars in the Middle East? How can we summon bold vision and leadership at such a time? Well, here's a thought. 150 years ago, in the midst of the utter devastation of the American Civil War, our leaders conceived and passed the Morrill Act. As you know, the Morrill Act established our great system of land-grant universities to invest in the education of young people from all social strata. I would guess that many of us in this room were educated in land-grant universities. I was. 150 years ago, in the midst of the utter devastation of the American Civil War, our leaders conceived and created the National Academy of Sciences because they understood that, as they said, science and art were fundamental to the development and expansion of our nation. Until or unless such bold vision comes again, we must unleash our innovation system as best we can. This is sort of a non-linear, loosely organized system. It's still the best in the world, and we need to be at the forefront of other emerging models of innovation. Inducement prizes, newly reorganized universities, as are being created in several countries around the world, virtual communities of the kind I talked about as examples of brain integration. But we must all remember that it all begins with education. And something big is about to happen in education. With great suddenness, the world of higher education is investing massively in the development of carefully constructed, interactive online learning, including so-called MOOCs, the massively open online courses. That, of course, is a whole topic for another day, but I'm quite confident that it is transformative, and also confident that we have no idea of what its ultimate impact will be. But it certainly will impact the balance of competition and cooperation, the idea of brain integration that I've tried to discuss with you this evening. Thank you very much for your attention, and especially thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of our community, and thank you very much for honoring me so greatly this evening.
There's a number of things.